So today I'm just standing here overwhelmed with emotions.
The wife of Brittney Griner was at the White House today to announce the WNBA star is being released from a Russian prison.
To get her back, the president traded Russia for a prisoner known as the Merchant of Death. The man who arrested the criminal will explain why he thinks the trade was a bad idea. Plus, another American is still in a Russian prison. Find out why he was not part of this prisoner swap.
And a Russian history expert from the Triad dropped some knowledge today that definitely raised my eyebrows. Find out why I made this face as we dig into it. Developing now, a video just into our newsroom shows Brittney Griner leaving the Russian prison.
Yeah, this is 10 months after Griner was arrested in Russia on drug charges. She will now return to her family. First, Griner will have a medical assessment as well as a debriefing about her detainment. Then she'll begin the process of reintegration. White House officials say Griner is in good health, was all smiles at her release, eager to return to her family and the basketball court.
Brittney will soon be back in the arms of her loved ones, and she should have been there all along.
In order to get Griner home, President Biden authorized a prisoner swap for Russian arms dealer Viktor Bout.
Yeah, he was serving a 24-year sentence or 25-year sentence for conspiring to kill Americans by selling weapons to the terrorists. His nickname is the Merchant of Death.
Okay, that sounds terrifying, and people who know him tell CBS News he lives up to that scary name.
The notorious arms dealer Viktor Bout, known as the Merchant of Death. His story inspired the 2005 film Lord of War, starring Nicolas Cage.
I supplied every army but the Salvation Army.
What should people know about Viktor Bout?
Mr. Bout was a major threat to our national security, and someone that we considered a grave enough threat that we poured a massive amount of resources into an investigation to apprehend him.
Former DEA agent Robert Zaharias-Shavitz was part of an international team that captured Bout in Thailand 14 years ago. The arms dealer was later convicted on federal conspiracy charges to kill Americans and supply weapons to a terrorist group. Zaharias-Shavitz told CBS News a swap for the arms dealer would put Americans at more risk.
I believe we're sending the message that it is good business to deal in the capturing, kidnapping, detaining of American citizens. I just don't think this is the right way to go about it.
When you hear about all the terrible things Bout has done, it makes you wonder, will he go back to a life of crime now that he's a free man? I called up a Russian history expert at North Carolina A&T to get his thoughts. Dr. Thomas Porter says the arms dealer is really not a threat anymore.
Think so, because he could be arrested again. He certainly would not be extradited from Russia, but if he were to get back in the game, so to speak, he'd have to use surrogates and all these people have been murdered and put in prison. I think he's just going to retire.
So Griner was arrested back on February 17th. In all those months since, a prisoner swap could have happened at any point, but it didn't. So why now? The Russian expert from A&T gives us insight into Russian President Vladimir Putin's mind.
I think Putin took the opportunity to conclude this deal because he's just now becoming aware of what a quagmire he is involved in his special military operation in Ukraine. He's finally getting unfiltered intelligence and getting, real-time, realistic appraisals of the situation, and he needed some kind of victory. And so I think, and in fact I know, that the Russian press is playing this up as a major accomplishment to get this Merchant of Death, Viktor Bout, back from the United States.
Before now, Putin's just sort of been surrounded by yes men, correct?
Yes, he was not getting any realistic information about the situation at the front, and he was a prisoner of his own ideology, his own ideas about Ukraine and Ukrainian national identity, and he really did believe that this special military operation would be over in 10 days.
What does this say, this swap, about U.S.-Russia relations?
We're still talking, and that's important because just yesterday, Putin made some veiled threats about, the use of nuclear weapons. Of course, said that, the point of nuclear weapons is deterrence. We all know that. The point is not to use them. But he had to mention again that they did have these weapons of mass destruction, and that they would, of course, be open to using them first if need be, because if they had to use them second, counterstrike, they might not be as effective.
Is this prisoner swap a sign of hope that something might end soon in Ukraine?
Not at all. Putin has no options. He has no realistic way of ending this without losing power. This is, even a glimmer of hope that this conflict will soon end. Putin just yesterday finally admitted that it could go on for a long time.
Yeah, that was the moment that got me, hearing that Putin is okay with this war going on for a long time. So far, at least 40,000 Ukrainians have died, and Russia's estimated to have lost almost 100,000 troops.
Well, Brittney Griner isn't the only American serving time in Russia. Former Marine Paul Whelan has been behind bars since 2019, saying that he was abused and harassed in prison all of that time. The White House tried to get him as well, but President Biden said Russia just wouldn't budge because of the different type of charges that he's facing. Griner was convicted of drug charges. Whelan was arrested on espionage charges.
Sadly, for totally illegitimate reasons, Russia is treating Paul's case differently than Brittney's.
Paul Whelan himself spoke with CNN after learning of Griner's release. He said he was disappointed not to be included in that deal.
This is a precarious situation that needs to be resolved quickly, and I would hope that he and his administration would do everything they could to get me home, regardless of the price they might have to pay at this point.
Whelan's family said the likelihood that our parents will see their son again diminishes each day his wrongful detention continues. Increasingly, I worry that Paul himself won't survive 12 more years in a Russian labor colony. Well, President Biden said his administration will keep fighting for Whelan's release.
But there is no timeline for when a deal might be reached.